My name is Chris Sanders and I work in the sales department here in our Denver, Colorado offices, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's NinjaTrader 8 New User or Order Flow Plus event. It is important to understand that there is substantial risk in trading commodity future contracts or foreign currency. You should carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you and will depend on your specific circumstances and financial resources. It is possible to lose all the funds deposited with your broker and could even incur losses beyond these amounts. Please inquire at brokerage support at NinjaTrader.com for more information or for a copy of the CFTC full risk disclosure. Also, please remember that these training webinars are not a solicitation nor a recommendation, but simply educational in nature. And what's new in NinjaTrader 8? Well, we've added over 500 user-driven enhancements, which include charting, our new alert system, new features in the Super DOM window, modernized user interface, and more. NinjaTrader is a free application for advanced charting, market analytics, automated strategy development, and trade simulation. We only charge for our product if and when you decide to trade live on the NinjaTrader platform. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook for exclusive market commentary, updates on contract expirations, rollover dates, and more. And additionally, the NinjaTrader blog is your home for all things NinjaTrader. And all these can be found at the links I've entered into the room. Order Flow Plus is a suite of premium indicators that we have released for lifetime license key holders with NinjaTrader 8. This industry-leading indicator suite is available exclusively to our lifetime license key holders. The Order Flow Plus indicator suite gives you tools to identify buying and selling pressure through the analysis and visualization of trade activity. For today's presentation, I'll be using 4 different charts within a pre-built workspace to demonstrate NinjaTrader's Order Flow Plus suite of indicators, including volumetric bars, market depth map, trade detector, cumulative delta, and volume weighted average price. But before we begin, let's take a moment to discuss the concept of market delta. Market delta is the difference between buy and sell orders at a certain price, determining whether trades executed as buy or sell market orders based on whether the orders filled at the bid or ask price. Orders that fill at the ask price are assumed to be market orders, while orders that fill at the bid price are assumed to be sell market orders. So if there are a lot of orders filling at the ask price, then we can assume there are a lot of motivated buyers in the market. So we'll start with the volumetric chart, so I'll expand that into full view. And volumetric chart displays the buy and sell volumes that occurred at each price level of a bar based on whether the trades filled at the bid or ask price, and this is essentially a footprint style chart. Volumetric bar types require historical tick data, and if using delta type bid ask, then the data must also be bid ask stamped. And we'll start by taking a look at some of the parameters we can change on the volumetric bars and demonstrate how modifying those parameters will change the data displayed on the chart. So to do this, we'll right click on the chart and select Data Series. And the first thing we can change is the delta type, by which we calculate the cumulative delta. With this set to bid ask, this setting accumulates the volume of orders filled at the bid or less versus ask or more. Orders filled at the ask or more price are considered buying pressure. Orders filled at the bid or less price are considered selling pressure. If the current tick price is between ask and bid, the volume will be recorded at the same pressure as the previous tick. With this set to up-down tick, this setting accumulates the volume of upticks versus downticks. Upticks are considered buying pressure, downticks are considered selling pressure. If the current tick price is the same as the previous tick price, the volume will be recorded at the same pressure of the previous tick. And I'm going to set that back to bid ask, and next we'll cover the chart style option. And if we scroll down, we can see that the text that is yellow is the price level that has the highest volume for the bar. The price levels that are the most opaque have the highest delta for the session. So for example, if there was a bar that had a price level with 1 buy and 1,000 sells, and another price level with 2,000 buys and 2,000 sells, The first price level would be more opaque since there is a greater difference between the buy and sells, a higher delta. Now with chart style type set to the bid ask, this will show the number of trades executed at the bid and ask prices. By contrast, by setting this to delta, this will only show the difference between those values. After changing the charts type to delta, we can see that the highest delta values are also the most opaque. And second comparison of buy-sell volumes is the imbalance detection. So I'm going to go ahead and enable the show imbalance option. And here the price level buying and selling volumes are compared diagonally to understand which side of the market was stronger by exceeding the set imbalance ratio. This can be helpful, especially if multiple imbalances cluster together to form support and resistance areas. I'm going to open a page from our help guide here so we could get a better idea of this. And on the ES, the bid and ask are typically one tick apart. For us to compare the buys versus sales imbalance, we will need to compare the buy price to a sell price one tick lower. So if we have 57 buys at a price of $26.52.50, we should compare it to the sells at $26.52.25. For this example, let's say there are 106 sells at $26.52.25. We would then take the 106 sell orders and then divide them by 57, which gives us 1.86. The default imbalance is 1.5. Since 1.86 is greater than that, the sell text will be colored as an imbalance. Additionally, for the text to be marked as an imbalance, the volume must be greater than the minimum delta for imbalance, which by default is 10. The next setting we'll cover will be ticks per level. And this setting can be used to aggregate the value from multiple price levels. And this is helpful when looking at a longer time frame chart or a chart that would have a wider price range for each bar. So I'm going to increase this to a value of 3. And you'll see there will now be 3 ticks per level on the chart. If we go back to 1, then each one will have its own level. And the size filter setting works similar to the related cumulative delta indicator setting and will only include trades greater than or equal to the defined volume. So I could set the volume metric bars to include data for trades above a certain volume threshold. I'm going to set this to a value of 15. And we'll see now that a lot of the data is now removed as the volume was below 15, and anything above 15 will still be included. And if I reset that, then we'll go back to the initial displays. And the show bar statistics setting will display a grid at the bottom of the bar which will show certain statistics for the entire bar. Alright, next up we'll move into the market depth map section of the webinar, so I'll expand that into view. And the market depth map is a real-time data indicator that displays the highest market depth volume received at each price level per bar, then maps the market depth to the chart in comparison to other market depth values received within the visible area. This is done by taking the volume range and applying each depth a value of 1 of 20 opacity values, set by the selected bid-ask depth colors. The larger the depth volume, the more opaque the area will be. The market depth map indicator will only build from real-time data, and this means that it will not plot historically and will only plot from the time you load the indicator. Now if we compare the market depth map to a superdom, we will see that the more opaque price levels on the chart correspond with greater levels of market depth that can be seen on the superdom. These can be potential levels of support and resistance. Because there is a large volume at these areas, it takes more orders to fill at that price level to move the market. If the volume is removed or filled and the price goes past it, there is less resistance for the price to continue moving in that direction. However, the market could become exhausted and not have the momentum to move further in that direction. Now we'll take a look at some of the settings available. So we'll right click and select indicators. And we'll start with the base volume range on setting. And with this set to %, this will apply the highest depth volume received to 100% opacity and the lowest to 0%. If, for example, you may not care about the lower volume as much and just want to highlight the higher volumes more, you could increase the minimum volume range. Now I'm going to set this to a value of 30 and click the Apply button. And now all the market depth that was below 30% of the received depth volume will be transparent, and the higher volumes will stand out more. I'll go ahead and revert that back to 0. And now if we select the exact volume for based volume range on, we can now set the indicator to plot off a defined minimum and maximum volume range instead of basing the volume range of the high and low depth. I'm going to set that back to % here. And when you're using the market depth map indicator, we could see that there is a margin between the current bar and the y-axis. This area displays the real-time market depth. For example, this would represent the live market depth values plotting on a superdom. And we could increase the margin size to expand the area and make the real-time depth easier to see. So I'm going to triple that to a value of 150, and we'll see the increase on the margin on the right-hand side now. And the market depth map will plot 10 levels of real-time market depth above and below the current price. By default, the market depth map will project the last historical data forward until it is overwritten with real-time market depth at that price. By disabling the extend last known value, the historical market depth will no longer extend forward and will only print at the time the data was received. And we'll go ahead and move into the trade detector section of this webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and just add the order flow trade detector indicator to this chart here. And we'll see the trade detector is now plotting on the chart. And we'll go ahead and jump back in the indicators window to cover a few of the available settings. The trade detector displays significant trade volume either at a consistent bid-ask level, at price levels, or individual block trades. The marker is colored based on what % of orders were considered buy or sell orders. Buy volume is the trade that occurred at the ask or higher, and sell volume is the volume that occurred at the bid or lower. And this is another indicator that will plot historically as long as your data connection offers historical tick data that is bid-ask stamped. And we'll start with the base large volume on setting. And with this set to consistent bid-ask, with this setting, volume will continue to accumulate to form a marker so long as the bid and ask levels stay the same. If the bid and or ask price changes, a new accumulation of volume will occur to create the next marker. The marker will be plotted on the last price. With this set to price, with this setting, volume will continue to accumulate to form a marker at each price level within a bar. Each new bar will restart accumulation of volume at each price level of the current bar. And with this set to block, with this setting, a marker will be plotted for each tick that has a volume equal or greater than the minimum volume for a marker. I'm going to set that back to consistent bid-ask here. And the trade detector is designed to highlight areas of significant volume. If too many markers are on the screen, the minimum volume for marker value should be increased. By increasing the minimum volume, the trade detector will only mark trades above that volume threshold. This will decrease the number of markers on your chart so you can identify the significant trade events. I'm going to increase that to a value of 200. And we'll see that has reduced the number of markers on the chart. And you can also define the size of a maximum marker and number of pixels. By default, the size of trade markers will be scaled relative to the visible range of your chart. So the largest trade event within the visible range will have the maximum marker size. By changing base marker size onto session, the size of the trade markers will be scaled relative to the largest trade event over the course of the trading session. So the size of the trade markers will not change as we change the visible range of our chart because it is calculated on the highest volume from the entire session. The size of the trade markers will only change if a new high volume marker is formed during that session. And the last setting we'll cover is the Show Values on Hover option. And with that enabled, anytime you place your cursor over one of the trade markers, a mini data box will display with buy volume, sell volume, total volume, and price. And you could still access the mini data box by using the middle mouse button on your mouse. And we'll go ahead and move to the cumulative delta section of today's presentation. So I'll expand that chart into view. And cumulative delta is an indicator that accumulates the volume of orders filled at the bid and ask price or the up and down ticks to determine buy and sell pressure. Many traders use cumulative delta to look for divergence. If the market is bullish but the cumulative delta is bearish, this could indicate a lack of strength in the bullish move and the market could become bearish. Additionally, if new daily highs or lows occur, but the cumulative delta does not also have new highs or lows, this again could indicate a lack of strength and could result in the market reversing. And this indicator requires historical tick data that is bid-ask stamped. And there are a few different options by which you could calculate cumulative delta. I'd like to place a link into the room to our help guide that will cover some of these parameters. We'll go ahead and right click and select indicators and cover a few of the available settings for the cumulative delta. And the delta type setting here works similar to how it does on the volumetric bars and determines what kind of data to use. We could either select bid ask or up down tick. And you could also change the period of this indicator. With this set to session, this will accumulate volume data for the entire session. With the bar setting, this will accumulate volume data per bar, so the cumulative delta will reset on each new bar and have an open of 0. And the cumulative delta indicator also allows you to filter out ticks from the calculation based on a minimum volume. If we change the size filter to 50, the indicator will now only include ticks with a volume of at least 50 contracts. Alright, and that'll do it for the cumulative delta. So we'll go ahead and move to the volume weighted average price, or VWAP. And VWAP stands for volume weighted average price, and the VWAP is the total of the dollars traded for every transaction, price multiplied by number of contracts traded, and then divided by the total number of contracts traded for the day. This indicator includes standard deviation bands. And when the price moves away from the VWAP, this could indicate pressure for the market to move back towards the VWAP. The standard deviation lines are often used as areas of potential support and resistance. By default, the VWAP line will plot red if above the corresponding price data, or green if it is below the price data. Now if we move on into the indicator window here, we could cover a few of the available settings. And resolution set to standard is sufficient for most users and is recommended. This setting applies the volume from the bar to an average of the high, low, and close. Setting the resolution to tick is more accurate as it applies the volume for each tick to each tick's price. However, this is more resource intensive to process, and tick mode requires historical tick data. The trading hours selection is used to select the session on which NinjaTrader will calculate the VWAP. It will still be limited to the bars that are on your chart. So if you had the extended trading hours applied to the chart and wanted a regular trading hours VWAP, you could apply the appropriate trading hours. So currently I am using the CME US Index Futures ETH, or extended trading hours template, on this chart. And if I select the RTH, or regular trading hours, we'll see that the VWAP will now only plot off the regular trading hours, but the extended trading hours will be visible on the chart. And if you just want to use the session template that's being applied to the chart, you could use the Use Data Series setting, and then we'll use the time frame that is set within the data series for the entire chart. As you see, once I apply that again, the VWAP will plot for all the bars on the chart. And you could also change the number of standard deviation lines plotted from 0 to 3. And you can also define the multiplier for each of the standard deviation lines. So I'll just quickly double each one of these values. And for example, you could use Fibonacci levels for the standard deviation multiplier, and as you increase the standard deviation multiplier, the deviation lines will move further away from the actual VWAP. And to learn more about accessing Order Flow Plus and the additional benefits of a lifetime license key, you could contact our sales team at platformsales@ninjatrader.com. And that is all the material I had prepared for today. So if there are any questions, you could go ahead and enter those into the room now, and I'd be more than happy to try to assist those. And for those of you that need to get going, I do want to thank you for taking your time out of your day to attend today's presentation, as I realize the trader's time is their most valuable asset.